Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 10th of January 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, Trent Van Epps here from the Ethereum Foundation has put together an update where he said, just recorded the latest on Ethereum's upcoming KZG ceremony with a few people here excited for the episode and maybe the ceremony to be live soon. And you can learn more at the GitHub repository here. Now, as you guys will know, the KZG ceremony is a necessary prerequisite before we can launch proto-dank sharding or EIP 4844 on the Ethereum network. Now, I've explained a bit how the KZG ceremony works in the past, so I'm not going to go over that again now, but you can read all about it at the GitHub repository here. But basically, you will get an opportunity if you want to participate in this. They're hoping for as wide participation as possible, so from my understanding, all you would do is you would go to a website, you would run some software, that website would run some software on your hardware and then generate a source of randomness from that, or you can submit your own source of randomness as well, and the software does all the good stuff from there. I'm not sure exactly how it works under the hood, but from my understanding, as I've explained before, you would only need one honest participant out of all of them. So let's say there were 100,000 participants and 99,999 of them were all being dishonest. You still only need one honest participant to have a guarantee that the KZG ceremony is secure, which is really, really cool. That's why, I mean, some people will I guess, like, criticize this system saying, oh, it's a trusted setup, right? Like, you're still trusting someone for this source of entropy here. But basically, yes, but the more participants you have, the greater, the lower the chance of everyone being dishonest is. Obviously, if you only have one participant, the chance of someone being dishonest is pretty high. If you have two, it goes down, and then it can go down from there. Obviously, as you get larger and larger, it's not like an exponential function. It can turn into a linear function, and we don't know the exact numbers around it. It's kind of hard to calculate that, but we do know logically that the more participants there are, unique participants, and that's actually been the biggest issue with, I think, the KZG ceremony, is how to do Sybil resistance, because you can say, okay, well, we had 100,000 participants, but how do you prove that they were 100,000 unique participants? That's the key here. Unique participants that aren't just bots. There could be one unique participant and the rest of them are bots, right? That doesn't help anyone, because the bots could be run by that one person and the whole thing was just one person. So that's what they've been working on, and I'm curious to see what they've come up with when they release the KZG ceremony, because I think that's going to be critically important as well, to make sure that the people participating are actually unique individuals and not just bots, because that would be a really bad thing if we discover later on that it was all bots and it was all the same person, and now we can no longer trust the kind of stuff that was given in that ceremony there. I think there's an extremely low chance of that happening, just from the fact of the matter is, like, there's already hundreds of people, at least hundreds of unique humans at least, that I know will participate in this ceremony. People like the core developers and researchers, people in the Daily Gwei community, people just on Twitter, just following along casually, can open up the website and do it themselves as well. A lot of the developers in the ecosystem, the exchanges, and the infrastructure providers in general may participate as well. So you can have a pretty good guarantee that there's going to be at least hundreds of unique participants anyway, even if you didn't have a Sybil resistant mechanism. But the point of having a Sybil resistant mechanism is making sure that we get quality submissions rather than just bots, rather than just really low grade submissions to the ceremony itself. But yeah, as I said, this is coming real soon. They've been teasing it for quite a while now, and you can see here that Trent says it will be live soon, TM. So we don't know the exact date yet. Maybe in the next couple of months would be the ideal timing, I guess, because, as I said, this is a prerequisite for EIP 4844, and 4844 can't go live until this is done. So this needs to happen within, I guess, like the next couple of months, or 2 to 3 months, if we expect 4844 to go live in Q3 or Q4 of this year. But yeah, as I said, you can check out the GitHub repository for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. Right, an update out of RocketPool today. They started off this thread by saying, staking ETH with RocketPool just got a whole lot easier. Our proprietary router now aggregates rETH secondary markets to fulfill your transaction via the deposit queue and or decentralized exchange and deliver the best possible rates. You can try it out at stake.rocketpool.net. So this is obviously for the people out there who aren't really interested in running a mini pool as part of the RocketPool network. They just want exposure to staked ETH and exposure to RocketPool. They can do that by purchasing rETH. Now, as I've said before, rETH has been at a kind of premium here because of the fact that that staking pool has been full, and you need to spin up more mini pools in order to arb that. In order to kind of get that premium down to mint more rETH and all those other upgrades that I've spoken about in the past. I'm not going to rehash them here, but it's great to see that RocketPool has come together and put this out there to make it easier for people to be able to buy rETH and get the best possible rate that they can get. And as you can see in this screenshot, it actually tells you what the premium is. So you can see here that the premium at time of this screenshot was 1.23%. So essentially, you could think about this like, okay, well, what's the yield that you're going to be getting for the entire year on your staked ETH? It says here an average return of 4.15%. I don't know if that includes the premium or not, but let's say for the sake of argument it doesn't, then you would subtract that 1.23% premium that you paid and from that rate, and that would give you your real rate because you already basically paid more to get access to this rETH. Now, ideally the rETH price wouldn't have a premium on it at all. It would be tied to exactly how much rewards it has, and there'd be 0% premium, and you wouldn't have to actually front anything for that. But that's not how it is today. It hopefully will be like that in the future. But today, because there is more demand than there is supply, there is that premium there. But great to see RocketPool add this to their official stake.rocketpool.net website, which you can go check out. It'll be linked in the YouTube description below. All right, on to a bit of chat about layer 2s. So you can see here the Cryptofees.info website has added Starkware's StarkNet to L2Fees.info, which is a great website that tracks all the fees across all the different layer 2 networks. As you can see, they track fees for sending ETH and swapping tokens. Now, of course, these are basic kind of fees here, like sending ETH and swapping tokens are just two of the things you can do on these layer 2 networks. Obviously, there are all the DeFi apps you can interact with, NFT stuff, but it becomes harder to estimate the fees there because each DeFi project and each kind of like NFT project would have their different fees associated with them depending on the transaction or depending on, I guess, like the smart contract being interacted with there. So that's why sending ETH and swapping tokens here being ERC20s, just I guess like an easy thing to calculate. And you can see the list now includes StarkNet, and the fees are pretty cheap. I mean, these fees are also dependent on the fees of Ethereum Layer 1 since the data is settled to Ethereum Layer 1 here. That's why you can see that the optimistic rollup fees are a little bit more expensive than the ZK rollup ones. Not too much more here, but that's because they've got to post their call data to layer 1 here, and they've got more expensive costs there. But post proto dank sharding, these fees are going to be sub-cent basically, especially at the current gas prices that we're at, the relatively low gas prices that we're at here. But yeah, just great to see that L2Fees.info has added StarkNet here, just another way to keep track of the StarkNet ecosystem for you. So you can go check that out for yourself. And the second thing, which is a bit related here to the L2 stuff, or I guess very related, is a tweet that David Hoffman put out where he said the L2 bull market, and he took a screenshot of L2beat.com's activity measure, which shows the, I guess, past 24 hours of TPS on each of these L2s. Now, I've often said that TPS is an okay way to measure activity on a network, but it doesn't really translate one-to-one across networks. L2beat does their best to, I guess, normalize this to make it comparable, but still, the thing that I wanted to point out here was not necessarily the TPS numbers themselves, and this is real TPS. This is not theoretical TPS where you say, okay, we can do 1,000 TPS, but like there's no one using the chain, so the real TPS is actually 0. This is real TPS over the past 24 hours of when David took this screenshot. But what I'm focused on is the 7-day change, which is massive. Look at the 7-day change here in a bear market, guys. I know the market's been a little bit more bullish over the last, I guess, 3 days now, which will have influenced this, but this is really cool because, I mean, it just further reinforces the fact that L2s are continuing to grow, right? These rollups are continuing to grow. The thesis is playing out that Ethereum is scaling via these layer 2 networks, and websites like L2beat.com do a great service of measuring this for us and showing us these nice little fancy stats that we can get value out of and get data out of. But when you kind of look at this and look at the TPS numbers, as I said, I would take it with a little bit of a grain of salt just because I'm not entirely sure if L2beat right now is normalizing this because Ethereum handles gas differently to Optimism and Arbitrum. Even though they're EVM compatible or going for EVM equivalents, which Optimism has gone for, I don't think it's like 1-to-1. It might be very close, but I don't think it's like 1-to-1. And then looking at the other networks, which not EVM at all, it's definitely different. Like Immutable X, for example, I don't know if this is normalized, as I said, but they're not an EVM network. DYDX is not an EVM network. Same with SoRare, ZK Sync, StarkNet, and Aztec Connect here. They're different. So looking at that is kind of hard because I've seen screenshots before of TPS on some of these networks being a lot higher than this, but that TPS can't be compared to, I guess, like an EVM network, for example, because it's a different measure there. The way TPS is being measured is different. So always good to keep that in mind when measuring these things. And it's also a good rule of thumb for looking at this on-chain data in general, or just data generally. Data can be very easily manipulated or easily misinterpreted depending on what narrative someone is trying to push, or depending on if you don't actually understand what's happening under the hood. And that's why I've traditionally not been a fan of TVL as a metric. I mean, I originally was, but then this was back in 2020, but then it became like a target instead of a measure. And what ended up happening was that people looked at TVL as if it was some sort of signal as for an investment thesis or for some kind of activity signal. But in reality, it wasn't. In reality, most of the time, the only reason why a lot of protocols had TVL to begin with is because they were paying for it. They were doing liquidity mining programs, and it was a bull market, so it was working. But now you see in a bear market, a lot of this TVL, especially because the TVL is measured in the asset price as well, and measured in USD on asset prices that fall against USD in bear markets, we see that the TVL number was highly inflated by the asset prices being inflated and also highly inflated by liquidity mining programs. So I always like to denominate TVL not so much in USD, but in ETH or in another kind of like strong asset, like maybe something like BTC, rather than USD, because USD obviously is influenced by the prices of the assets and it leads to a lot of noise. So again, going back to my original point, it's always good to look at this data critically, make sure you understand the data, make sure you understand how it's measured, and the differences between it and all the nuance, lest you fall into this hole of thinking something has a lot of activity on it, thinking something's really popular, when in reality, you're not necessarily being lied to, but you're either misinterpreting the data, or someone else is misinterpreting it and trying to push it as if it's a positive to suit their own narrative. Because as we know, this space runs on narratives, runs on people trying to pump their own bags, as we know. So yeah, just always good to keep that in mind. But anyway, that doesn't take away from the fact that the growth, the 7-day change here is really positive, and that's something that is actually worth looking at, especially if it's consistent across chains. If it, for example, if there was an outlier here that showed for some reason Arbitrum 1 had plus 1000% and the rest of them had like no growth at all, then I would be a bit sus about that. I'd be like, okay, why did Arbitrum grow so fast? Are they doing a new liquidity mining program? Was there a big event on Arbitrum? Is there a bug on L2beat.com that's showing an incorrect data? Did they change the way they measure these things? That's what I mean by looking at the nuance. You can't just look at a number and think, oh my god, like, that's the truth. And people used to do this when DeFi Pulse used to have some bugs where it would say that the TVL of Maker, when Maker had most of the TVL, was basically 0. And people were like, oh my god, did Maker get hacked? And it's funny how people went to that instead of going to DeFi Pulse, which was just a centralized website talking to a database, their data having a bug in it, and their data pipeline having a bug in it, which showed the wrong data. And the funny thing is, you could very quickly and very easily verify this for yourself by going to another third-party service like Etherscan and looking at the Maker contract itself and seeing that the assets were still there. Obviously, Etherscan is not going to give you the whole, is not something to be 100% trusted, because it can also be tampered with. It can also have data pipeline issues. But if that's showing something different to what DeFi Pulse is showing, I think it's better to assume that it's a data error rather than, it got hacked or something like that. So that's another bit of nuance to consider there as well. But anyway, leave one at that. You can check out the activity measure here if you want at L2beat.com, which David Hoffman also links in his tweet here, which of course will be linked in the YouTube description below. All right, continuing on the, layer 2 front here, I came across a tweet thread from 100y.eth, which was about Polygon. So they started off this thread by saying, Polygon will lead the era of modular blockchain in 2023. I've written a 69-minute read-long piece on Polygon covering all of its products. Hope this will serve as a valuable resource as you embark on your journey to Polygon. Now, this is a tweet thread which you can read, which summarizes this, but also a Medium post, which, is literally a 69-minute read. So it is quite a long read with different chapters. There's about 7, I think, chapters here going over this. But if you want to learn about Polygon, what they're doing, what the, bull case is for Polygon, what they're working on across all of their different teams, this is your Bible, basically. It's up to date. It just got published yesterday. So I would highly recommend going and checking it out for yourself. But the reason why I also wanted to talk about this was not only that it was a great report, but also the fact that this terminology of modular blockchain is something that I've been talking about a lot and for a very long time on the Refuel. It was originally put on my radar by Polygon, which you are all familiar with, way back in, I guess, like maybe even 2020, I think it was, or even maybe early 2021. But basically, the concept of a modular blockchain is splitting up the parts of what a blockchain does. So the Ethereum layer 1 will be like a settlement and data availability layer, and Ethereum layer 2 will be an execution layer. Even though Ethereum layer 1 can still do execution, it's not being optimized for that. And then we had these other chains come out, or I guess like reveal themselves, like Celestia, which is just optimizing for data availability. Polygon Avail, so Polygon has their own solution, which is also optimizing for data availability. There are other ones like Eigenlayer, which is taking a novel approach here by tapping into the ETH that's staked and doing like a restaking architecture. So there's an explosion of, I guess, the modular blockchain design in stark contrast to the last few years, which has been dominated by the monolithic blockchain design, which are the Solanas of the world, the Avalanches of the world, the blockchains that say we can do everything at layer 1, we don't need to scale via a modular approach, which is fine to have that thesis and think that that can work. But as you guys know, I don't think that that's actually a long-term sustainable model. I think that the modular roadmap or the modular blockchain design is much better, but I think there's actually value in the monolithic designs as well because it shows us what not to do. It basically shows us and validates our thesis around monolithic blockchains. Now, of course, it may still be too early to definitively say that monolithic blockchains are not going to be successful and modular blockchains are the only things that are going to be successful, but in my personal opinion, I think that I already believe that, but there's obviously it's still too early to definitively say anything, and it's not like I'm saying that these other monolithic chains can't succeed in their own right. I'm saying that I think they'll succeed in a niche kind of form only. I don't think they're going to succeed in the same way something like Ethereum will, where it's a modular design that can scale to the world. It becomes a settlement layer. ETH becomes, or is, ultrasound money, becomes a better and better store of value and accrues more monetary premium. That is a whole different kind of discussion there, but I think it's still valuable to have both modular and monolithic, even if I believe that modular is the way to go. But if you want to learn more about modular blockchains and everything that Polygon has going for it, I highly recommend giving this blog post a read, which will be linked in the YouTube description below. And you can also read the tweet thread, which of course will be linked as well, which summarizes the post, just in case you didn't want to, spend 69 minutes reading this. But in saying that, I mean, if you've got some spare time, or if you've got time to do that, you can do that, or you can maybe feed the blog post through one of those text-to-speech readers if you don't mind the rather robotic voices some of them have, and maybe you go on a run or go on a walk or something, or on the treadmill or at the gym. And listen to it, might be valuable for you as well. But anyway, will be linked in the YouTube description below. All right, so something that came out of the Phi project yesterday, I think it's Phi, it might be Phi, it's spelled P-H-I, so maybe it is Phi, maybe I'll say Phi from now on, but it's called Phi Connect, and it's now live on mainnet. So what Phi Connect allows you to do is connect lands and create your favorite worldview in Phi land. You can construct a URL like the one below, which is linked here, which is a sample connecting for lands. So just a refresher here, Phi is a project that wants to basically allow you to build your own digital world, digital metaverse based on your on-chain footprint. So for example, you get a unique building based on how much ETH you have in your wallet, or a unique footprint based on how many Uniswap transactions you have, or sorry, unique item based on how many Uniswap transactions you've done. And it goes far beyond this. Those are just the basic examples here. But you can actually go here and see on see the demo of what they mean by connecting the lands here. Is that this URL refers to 4 different kind of land plots, and there's different kind of items or buildings, I should say, on each of them here. And I should definitely disclose that I'm an investor in Phi here, but this is, I guess, like one of the NFT related plays that I like investing in, or I like putting my weight behind. It's those infrastructure things where I think there's tons of value in NFTs. I don't know which individual ones are going to succeed, so I'd rather take a wide berth infrastructure approach when investing in these sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, if you haven't checked them out yet, you can. But great to see that they've added Phi Connect here, and there's a little tweet thread, describing this and explaining exactly what it is, as well as the link to what I've got right in front of me, which you can check out. It'll be linked in the YouTube description below. All right, so you may have heard of a, I guess, decentralized Twitter clone called Farcaster that has been in the works for quite a while and has actually been live in an invite-only mode for a while now. It has for the last, I guess, like year or so that it's been in open beta, been a mobile-only kind of experience, but now there is a desktop client that got released today called, or I guess spelled omilos.xyz, which you can go check out for yourself if you have a Farcaster invite and connect here. So as I said, this is a decentralized version of Twitter. It's very similar to Twitter. It's got the the tweets, the replies. I mean, they're called casts, right? And then when you and you can still like something and reply to it and recast it. But the reason why I bring this up is because this is one of those, I guess, like decentralized social media platforms that I'm really bullish on. Like this and Lens, I'm just really bullish on these sorts of things because they're trying to build the architecture in such a way that not everything is strictly on chain. So that makes it obviously a lot cheaper, makes the user experience better, but they're decentralizing what actually matters. So the reason why different clients can be built is because the backend is open, right? Like it's not like Twitter where it's all closed off and different clients used to be able to be built, but then the API was shut off, which means the backend was shut off. I like this because it means you can pick your own client. I think there's like a few, like 5 different mobile clients or something to interact with Farcaster. I'm not sure on the exact number. And now there's a web client, and there's going to be more and more as time goes on here. So I just wanted to highlight that for you guys that there is a web client live now if you have a Farcaster invite. If you don't, I actually don't know what the current process is to sign up to Farcaster. I got my invite quite a while ago. I haven't been very active on there because it's been mobile only. I do most of my, I guess, tweeting on desktop. So if I'm going to move or at least kind of interact with a similar platform, I'm going to be doing it on desktop almost exclusively. So that's why I haven't really been active on there. But I hope with this new web client that I can be more active once I get it working. Right now it won't let me connect because I created a new wallet on the mobile client. I'm not signed in with like Sassel.eth, for example, and I have to find a way to connect them together, which I will do. I just haven't done that because obviously Sassel.eth doesn't have a Farcaster invite, so I can't sign in with it on desktop. But I'll get there. But anyway, as I said, like Farcaster is invite only. You can go to their Twitter account to see what the current process is for signing up, and I'll link this in the YouTube description below. All right, finally here we have a new project, or I don't know if they're brand new, but it's new to me at least, that kind of put together a Twitter thread called Lava Network, which talked about supporting decentralized access to Ethereum state data, aka their Lava Network now supports, or now I guess like has a decentralized RPC that Ethereum users can tap into. Now I've talked a lot about RPCs in the past, how basically a lot of them are centralized, how they can censor you because you're relaying your transactions via them instead of relaying it via your own full node or via a decentralized RPC. Well, there are some out there like Poct Network, which have been around for a little while. There is a new RPC from, I guess, Llama nodes, which I've talked about before as well, which I don't know if they're decentralized yet, but they're committed to not censoring, not banning anyone, not geo-blocking or anything like that, which is a step above what Infura currently does because they do geo-block certain countries based on sanctions, I believe, so countries like Iran and Russia. But in that respect, I've always encouraged people to use these decentralized RPC networks or use their own full node as an RPC, which is actually relatively easy to do. And if you're running a full node, you really don't have an excuse not to use it as an RPC because at the end of the day, like if you're running a full node and because you're validating or validate it on the network, that's totally fine. It's awesome that you're doing that. But if you're still using a third-party RPC, then it doesn't really make much sense. So if you are doing that, you should definitely go and set up your own RPC connections, or I guess like change your wallet to connect to your own full node and open the ports needed for RPC access to happen there, which you can Google for anyway. But yeah, just great to see another entrant in the decentralized RPC space. I'm sure there's going to be more of these as time goes on. It is actually something that Poc Network has been trying to do and add incentives to with their token. So essentially, you would have a service where the people would pay some kind, I guess like the RPC would take some kind of fee, and then the token would be staked in order to get a claim on that and to run nodes in the network and such and such. I'm not sure on the economics of it and how well that will work over time, but the idea of having a decentralized RPC is obviously very sound and very needed. But then we also have light clients coming as well, which will help a lot with this RPC stuff that we've been suffering because you would just be able to run a light client locally and then be able to relay the transactions with relative certainty that everything is okay and you're interacting with the correct chain. But in the meantime, yeah, you can use your own full node as an RPC if you want to, or you can use one of these decentralized RPCs or one of the ones that have committed to not censoring or not geo-blocking, such as Llama nodes, which I've highlighted before. You can Google it, Llama nodes. I know I talk really fast, guys. I'm sorry. Sometimes I talk so fast you probably don't get what I'm saying, but yeah, Llama nodes, you can Google that as well. But of course, Llama network will be linked in the YouTube description below for you to check out. But on that note, I'm going to cut today's episode a little bit short because that's all I have for you. But anyway, thanks for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.